Yesterday I was clever, wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. Let go of who you are, become who you might be. Let your life become living poetry.
Hi everyone, today I want to talk about an article that I recently read in the BBC on their online platform, and I will try and link that article in the description box below the video. Essentially, the article was about how aging is not a destructive force and that defying ageism can actually make a significant change in how we perceive ourselves as a person. I find that very interesting, and since most of the people that watch this channel are older, I think that you would find this whole topic interesting as well. So let's discuss. Hi, my name is Reina, and this is Small Retired Life. On my channel, we talk about all things retirement, living in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. And if you're new, welcome here. When we think of the word ageism, we often think about unfair treatment of older people, or even stereotyping. So something like, for example, older people are frail and irrelevant. But ageism actually goes much deeper than that. It's all about how we think, act, and feel about people on the basis of age. Ageism is truly baked into our culture, into our media, and oftentimes into how we see our own future selves. And so it's really worthwhile looking into this topic and examining what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. The BBC article specifically talks about the fact that negative views about aging often start very early in life, and as soon as 3. And to actually combat the concept that aging is bad, we need to start with children, like from the day that they're born, and making them view aging right from very early on as a very normal part of life, and looking at older people not as people that are incompetent or too frail to do anything, but instead, as in some cultures, older people are actually wise and they're experienced and they have a lot to impart. The article also gave some statistical facts about the fact that in the UK, 1 in 3 older individuals will experience some form of ageism and discrimination on the basis of age. And in the US, the stats were staggering. Out of 2,000 people that were studied and surveyed, something like 93% had experienced ageism in some way or another, be it that they've lost a job because they're older, or they have not been able to get health care in the same manner as a younger person would, and that type of thing. Ageism is not just about how others treat us, but it's also about how we internalize stereotypes and the impact that this has on our health outcomes. We call this the stereotype embodiment theory. In simple terms, what this means is that we absorb cultural ideas about aging throughout our life. And those ideas form and help develop our own set of beliefs regarding aging. And those set of beliefs drive how we act and oftentimes how our body responds, apparently, according to research. Another thing that the article brought up that I think is pretty interesting is just how also in popular culture and in media, we oftentimes represent aging and getting older as a negative thing. So for example, the term over the hill. it's as if there's only one hill to climb throughout our lifetime, which is blatantly false. I mean, at every stage of our life, there is some kind of a hill, and then we climb it, we get down, and then there's another one to present itself. So that whole idea of being, over the hill is absolutely false. Another one is when media uses terms like, for example, the gray tsunami. It's like this concept that globally the world is aging, and then we have all these old people that are just invading the population of the earth. And I mean, yes, potentially we have more older people now, and there will be more older people in the next 10, 20, 30 years. But that's just a demographic. I mean, if you think about the baby boom era, there was a lot more younger people because everyone was having babies after the war. And so we had this influx of younger people. So demographics can change, and demographic impacts come at any age, be it that there's more older people in the world, or potentially there at one day there could be more younger people again. So when you represent old age and aging as a negative thing, that is absorbed by society and then will be reflected in how society approaches aging, how they think about aging, and how they treat older people. As the global population is getting older in general, a lot more research is being done into aging, and there's some fascinating outcomes that are coming out of this research. Several projects apparently have shown that older people who have a more positive view and belief system about aging and getting older actually live 7 to 7.5 years longer than people that have negative beliefs. There's always been this idea that, if you think positively, you will have a positive outcome. Actually, a lot of New Age practices are all about, positive manifesting and positive thinking. And in my opinion, some of that gets taken way too far and becomes almost nonsensical. But there's definitely something to be said in regards to the fact that if you think more positively, you tend to be more open to trying new things or trying and taking advantage of opportunities that come along. And so you actually give yourself a better chance of having a positive outcome, as opposed to someone who tends to be a little bit more negative and way more risk averse and doesn't ever try different things, hence cannot have an outcome because they haven't even delved into an opportunity. So I do believe that there's a certain amount of action that is required on our part, some positive action, in order to have a positive outcome. What these studies clearly show is it's not about just positive thinking here, but instead it's about reshaping our belief system of what aging is. Instead of thinking of aging as a decline, think of it more in terms of experience, of resilience, and of ongoing growth. Now, going through the trouble of changing belief systems that are pretty entrenched in many of us and becoming a little more positive about the concept of aging and how we view aging is actually really worthwhile, because it's not just about living longer, as these studies are showing, but what these studies are showing is an association with, as an example, better cognitive function and a lessening of symptoms in age-related diseases such as Alzheimer's. So just improved memory. Also better physical function. And that could be because you don't kind of impose limiting factors on what you can and can't do as you're getting older. It means that you're still participating in things like sports or exercise. The BBC article talks about the concept of stereotype threat. And this is talking about where society or our own self-perception of what it means to be older starts to talk negatively in our head about what we can or can't do. So as an example, let's say that you want to improve your health and fitness and you want to start lifting weights. And there's this voice saying, well, you're too old to lift heavy weights. And society has perpetuated that with a belief system that talks about older people being frail or being delicate or breaking their bones and that type of thing. And so immediately you think, oh, okay, well, I can't lift heavy weights. And so you don't even try. And the narrative that you can't lift heavy weights because you're older is absolutely false. An example of this, I don't know if any of you have ever watched a YouTube channel called The Honest Channel. I will link it down below. The owner of the channel is Claire Johnston, and I believe she is a journalist in her past career that has written extensively about health and wellness and aging and all of those types of topics. And on her channel, she follows the journey of her mom and dad who are in their 80s. And her mom could barely walk without a walker. And they started a training program using 3 very simple compound movements where they're doing a deadlift, an overhead press, and a squat. And they're using barbell for their exercise equipment. And they started out with a trainer who specializes in training older folks. And it is absolutely incredible, the change that her parents saw in their fitness. I will link one of the videos because it was so empowering, and it truly challenges that concept that when you're older and even when you're frail, that you cannot begin a journey that will actually improve your health 100% to the more positive end. Honestly, watch this video. It is so empowering. It shows you that no matter how old you are or what your age is, that you can go and do things and you can make significant changes in your health. The fact that we have these negative belief systems out there about aging, and even that a lot of these negative belief systems have invaded our own thought patterns and our own biases, means that we actually prevent ourselves from bettering our lives, bettering our health, improving our entire well-being by subscribing to some old-fashioned and negative views as it pertains to aging. That, I think, is the greatest impact that ageism has on our ability to thrive as we get into our later years. Positive thinking about aging and how we view old age has also shown a couple of other positive associations besides just better cognitive abilities and better physical health. Also, what's been shown is that individuals have greater confidence and more motivation to stay socially active and to just stay more active in general, and an improvement in mental health and self-esteem. And I think that comes from the fact that if we're out there and we are enjoying our life and we're active, we're exercising, we're looking after ourselves, we have social contacts with other people, we just generally feel better. And clearly what these studies are showing is that when all of these factors come together, there is an increase in lifespan And that increase is still good quality years. So you're not just laying there in bed, not moving. And that is the important aspect. Researching for this video has shown me that ageism is not just psychological, but it literally gets under your skin. Research clearly indicates that negative belief systems about aging negatively impact your mental health and your physical health, which then has a direct correlation to your mortality rate. People that internalize negative thoughts are more likely to withdraw from society and withdraw from living. They're less likely to exercise and to participate in what's going on around them. And it's also been shown that they're less likely to care about their health and to get regular health checkups and just keep up with the things that are necessary to continue to be able to live a good quality lifestyle as we age. In my view, the stereotype embodiment theory, where stereotypes are internally absorbed, so stereotypes that are inflicted by society, culture, media, etc., as we've been discussing, is probably the most I would say the most disruptive and also the most coercive aspect of ageism, because it is what allows people or enables people to internalize negative stereotypes and as such not even try new opportunities. It's kind of like this self-fulfilling prophecy where, if you think you can't, then you can't because you won't even try. And that's, I guess, kind of a summary of what I'm trying to say. I just believe that when we accept the stereotype that older people can't learn, or older people can't get better, or they can't exercise, or they can't run, or they can't do all of these things, then we immediately stop accepting the possibility of new learning opportunities. Think about the whole concept that, if you think aging is a downhill slide, and that is the message that you're sending to yourself, then potentially that is what you're going to believe and that is what you're going to act on, as opposed to telling yourself that aging is just another stage of life and it doesn't limit you from doing the things that you want to do. Combating stereotyping and ageism in the cultural sense can be very difficult, but there's certainly a lot of groups that are doing that. I think people who are in our 50s, 60s, and 70s are really redefining what aging should look like. And we no longer accept a trite statement of, well, you're too old for that. Whether that comes to be directed at what we're wearing or what we're doing as far as lifestyle or sports or where we're living. There's just so many things that we can do on a personal level that will potentially help us to broaden our view of what it means to be older. One exercise that I think is really worthwhile doing is to sit down and write a list of all of the things that you've been taught about being older, or some of the things that you believe. And then specifically focus on some of those negative things that you're writing down and see if they really make sense in today's construct. We absolutely have better healthcare. There's better equipment for anything and everything. I mean, I even think in terms of doing YouTube, way back when there was like this huge digital camera and you had to know how to work it. Now we have so many tools. Well, this comes in all aspects of life. There's so many different exercise machines. There's so many different training techniques. There is so much more available. And it behooves us to look at our internal stereotypes and our own internal biases about aging, figure out what they are and fight those and challenge them and say to yourself, I'm saying here that I can't do this, but is that really true? Is that really true, or can I? Can I? That, to me, those are the two most important words that we can say to ourselves. Can I do this? Can I try that? Can I learn this? Definitely a worthwhile exercise to go through. Also, words matter, and don't make jokes about being old. I really dislike these birthday parties where people will turn, 50 or whatever, and people bring them gag gifts. I mean, maybe some of you think that's funny, and you probably may disagree with me, but I hate that type of thing because it perpetuates this stereotype that now you've hit this part of your life and, it's downhill all the way. The fact is that a lot of the research shows that most older people live in communities, they volunteer, they contribute, they do new things, they try new things, and they are more than capable to keep growing and keep expanding. And it's actually a very small proportion of the elderly that really require around-the-clock care or that have very challenging situations. That is not the norm of aging, but for some reason, that is what we associate with aging. Yes, those things happen, but there's many things that we can do to actually lessen that outcome or extend that outcome just by leading healthier lives, combating some of these biases in our own day-to-day, and refusing to believe that we cannot do this, that, or the other thing because we're older. So this is my topic for this week. Read the article. I hope you can access it. I didn't have any difficulty. I didn't encounter a paywall or anything on BBC. So hopefully you can access the article. I thought it was enlightening. I love reading this kind of stuff and ruminating on it and challenging my own biases and my own belief systems. So it's not just something I'm talking about, just because I'm talking about it. It's something that really struck a chord with me, and this article was thought-provoking. So that's all I have for this week. I will see you all next week at my regular time. And again, if you have comments or discussion topics, please leave them in the comment section below the video. See you all next week. Bye.